Okay. Well, I think we'll get back into it. I've hit the record button now. We didn't record all of the chatter about that design, but that was really good. I think that always is nice to dig, roll the sleeves up and dig into a design like that. Now, welcome, Sam. And let me just start the slides going here. And I've popped your contact details there, Sam. And a little Wally there for everybody, just to make sure they're on their toes. Sam, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I'm Sam Pasley. So my background comes from working across the North Island a little bit. I've worked in Auckland on Auckland local roads, Auckland motorways, and in Whakatane and Ahopi, working on small little backcountry roads, building roads and managing network safety for NZTA and the local authorities as well. So that's what I really enjoy doing is network safety and road safety auditing and safe system auditing throughout the country, as well as coming and doing some road safety advisory and projects and interesting projects, including like suicide and motorcycle projects at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. So you've had quite a bit of time in road safety in New Zealand, and certainly seen lots of changes as you tick along, and spent a good bit of time at Opus WSP, and now jumped in as managing director of Safe System New Zealand.
Yeah, it's good to be with you, Ken.
Excellent. Now, this is the opportunity for us to really discuss that process of safe system auditing in New Zealand, how it plays out. So I'll give you an opportunity, Sam, and I'll pop this slide of the process that's documented in the New Zealand Safe System Audit Guide to start our discussion. Maybe if you just generally take us through the process of a safe system audit, and we'll then I'll ask some questions. I'm sure others might have some questions on the specifics as we go. So everybody there, feel free to either type it into the chat and I'll feed those questions to Sam, or pop your hand up as we have been doing, and we'll get you to be able to speak your question. But over to you, Sam. Talk us generally through the process of a safe system audit.
Yeah, cool. So before we step onto the through 13 stages, I guess the first thing you'd want to do is to make sure that there's actually a requirement or that you actually have to do a safe system audit, or you wouldn't know when is a safe system audit needed. So for projects that fall under the National Land Transport Funding model, there is a bit of guidance in the procedures manual, and it's also in the planning and investment knowledge base when it gets updated again for this new NLTF, around when safe system audits are required. So you've got generally, though, if I put it in relatively simple terms so I can understand it, you've got improvements, renewals, and maintenance projects. Maintenance projects are generally excluded from the safe system audit process. Renewal projects can require safe system audits if there's a change to generally the complexity of the project. You'll have a look at it, or you'll have to go in through and do an exemption form and attach that to your TO application. And for improvement projects, it's the same thing. You've got to go in there and have a look at whether the project aligns with the safe system principles or is particularly complex, or generally what stage of the audit you think you need to do the safe system audit for. So majority of the time, probably in renewals, we see the exemption forms coming in, but there are times when safe system audits are warranted and military applicable, but then it flips back to kind of the other side for the improvement projects, where it's generally the time it's mostly warranted for a safe system audit, but there'll be times when exemptions are applicable as well.
And the exemption form, that's available on the Wakatahi website, isn't it?
That is, it's the same place that you can find the template form for the safe system audit principles.
Great.
Excellent. So then you work through with the client and confirm what audit stage that you're working through. So in the guide, you'll see there's the 4 stages, I think they've got them, which generally follows design guidance or design processes. A lot of the time in New Zealand, you'll probably be most likely doing one at detailed design stage and potentially at post-construction stage. Apologies if you're getting some background chatter. Northland's got a good policy where they tend to try and do a lot more in the concept stage. And that means that they can pick up a lot of these issues earlier, particularly around the safe system assessment framework part of the audit, and try and make those good safe systems decisions nice and early. So I think Pat is actually online, actually. So they've done a really good guidance document up in Northland. Then the client will go and generally will choose the team leader. That team leader should have about 10 years of experience in general traffic and transport engineering and have done, I think it's a minimum of 5 safe system audits as a team member for that particular stage or process. Oh, sorry, it's lunchtime around me, so hopefully you're not getting too much background.
No, we're not hearing any background noise. It's fine.
Fantastic.
So the so 10 years experience. So this is in the New Zealand guidance, and it's suggesting that there's that requirement for the team lead. And what was it for the safe system auditors themselves?
I've got it up ahead of me. So it says typical 3 years minimum of relevant road design, road construction, or traffic engineering, good safe system principles and safe system engineering experience, crash reduction study skills, and up-to-date professional experience and knowledge. So it's not particularly prescriptive, but when the team leader is choosing his team, he can also look at the type of project that he's got on, and there might be specialist skills that they want to bring into the team. So it might be a particular signals design, so you bring in someone with signals design skills, for example.
Yeah, okay. And there are also observers. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, that's a great way of bringing people through onto the process and getting them familiar with how safe system audits are carried out. And it'll be a good way to get more people on board, because we do need safe system auditors with these skills in New Zealand.
Yes. Okay.
Excellent.
Good. Keep going.
Keep moving. No questions. Right. So the client, we've selected the team now. We've got all our contracts all sorted, which is just some background things. Some clients can do these or are starting to do these in-house as well. So the client team, but there's a bit of a piece in here about independence as well in the guide, which is really important. So for Wakatahi projects or NZTA projects specifically, they say they have to be specifically contracted independent of the professional services contract. That doesn't specifically say that it has to be a different company, but you would surmise that it should be, and they should be able to show that independence as well for the safety audit team. So if they were doing it, say, in-house, so if you're a big organization like Auckland Transport, you should really be looking at whether it's held from a different team within Auckland Transport, if that's the in-house way you're wanting to do it. But you have to be able to show that independence.
Yep.
Very good. Right. The briefing. So this can, depending on the scale and size of the project, sometimes this doesn't happen. If it's a relatively simple project and it's quite obvious that you're doing a detailed design stage safety audit, say, of a raised pedestrian crossing, the client can just generally give it to you and say, here it is, and here's some numbers about pedestrians crossings where you can go. But it's really good to have this commencement meeting so you can get the context of why the design was chosen, and what kind of assumptions and principles and things that the designers have brought into the design. So, and then this is also your chance to go through and ask for any other background information and that you might need to complete it. So it could be that there's not a lighting design plan attached, something simple like that, or there's specifically some development that might be going on that isn't shown on the plans. So all that great background context information that can help you do your safety audit. That's good to get out at that design stage briefing. So that's stages 4 and 5. Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
Cool. Right. So then we're into almost the safe system audit proper, really. So you'll sit down and probably do a desktop exercise first with your team, with the team leader and the team. You might go away and do that separately, then come back together and talk through the points that you've identified. So it's pretty similar to what you did on your exercise today, really, is you go away, you'll look through the documents, you'll make copious notes and write some things down, and then come together and talk through them with your team, normally before you go out on site. I know other people might go out on site first and then do this, but we like to go out, do this first, so that we know when we're going out on site, we're making sure we're picking up and getting all the photos of the things that we want to be writing on in the report. Then you'll go out and do your site inspection with your team, safely, of course, using all traffic management processes that you should be doing. Yeah, so you'll go through and talk through with the team, look at, there might be other things that you pick up while on site that you couldn't see through the context of the 2D plans. So it's really important that you actually do the site inspection. Sometimes you'll do a night inspection as well. So there will be some projects that warrant an actual night inspection if there's going to be any changes to the lighting or any particular changes that the project has. Then you'll go back, and in some cases, this is where it gets a bit different for different clients and different projects. So some cases the client would like to see, or you might do a little debrief update on some of the things quickly that you've picked up on site that you're going to be writing about, or you might do a little debrief meeting where you talk about some of the things or more information that you might need to finish your report. In most cases, you'll just start writing up your report. So some clients in the Waikato like to have a little email that you just say, look, we went through some of the major things that we're going to be writing about, so that the designer can start to formulate responses or start thinking of ways that they can fix that in the design process, so it doesn't really slow them down too much. But the main thing is that you're maintaining your independence, so it is still going to go into the report through. Right, so then you write the report. You've learned how to do that through this training. Yes, and then that gets reviewed internally and sent to the client, and the client circulates it through to the designer first. So an important step is there that your contract is with the client, it's not with the designer, and it's not specifically with the safety engineer, really. It's so you send your report to the client. You might copy in the designer and the safety engineer from the council if it is. But it's really that project manager client whose job it is to circulate it to the design team and to follow through with all the responses in the form. So in the form and the template, you'll have the boxes that they can fill out in response to your recommendations. We previously had a question about, is it important that these design responses and safety engineer responses get done? Our answer is very much so, because really, as safety engineers, if you're standing in front of the coroner because something hasn't been done and you've got a report saying, well, this is a risk and an issue and recommendation treatment, you're in much stronger footing if you've gone through, analyzed the response and said, maybe, no, we can't do it because of X, rather than we knew about it and we did nothing. So it's a really important function of the safety audit, safe system audit, is to go through and analyzing the recommendations and determine an action for all of them, even if that action is that you just have to accept the risk in this case. Ultimately, the client makes the decision on whether to take forward an action. So again, this is something we also talk about, and you might have questions on who is the client. The client could be the project manager of the design project. So it could be someone who's not actually a safety engineer. It could be someone well, if it was a private resource consent client getting a safety audit, it could be them who's making the decision. So there's two parts to this. So although safety engineers, we do our best and we say the risks and we give recommendations, we unfortunately sometimes have to swallow a stone. It's probably a nice way of saying that saying. And that not all the time that our recommendations can be taken forward, because we have to understand that there's money and financial risks and things that come into projects. The other side of it is from the resource consent private developer safety audits. They might have commissioned a safety audit that the council's safety engineer commented on, gave good recommendation that they're not taking forward. We've talked about this at other ones, and it would be quite interesting to hear people's opinion on this call. I think where we got to was that those issues from the safety engineer will be picked up through the resource consent process, and that's the appropriate way to pick up the safety audit recommendation issues if they're not followed through appropriately by the developer. Right. Normally those decisions, what can happen? Well, good practice would be that the decisions from the safety audit goes onto a tracking sheet with the designer through the design process, and that those are completed and ticked off and managed through that project process. But that's something that you probably won't see as your safe system auditor. You'd hope, though, that, and it doesn't always happen, to be fair, that the client decisions are circulated back to you so that you can understand how your recommendations got taken on board or not. Oh, yeah, thanks, Dion. Yes, and that's generally the process, unless anyone else wants to ask questions or have any other, if they've encountered any other parts of the process in their adventures in New Zealand.
Okay, well, good opportunity there for anybody to type in questions at this stage around the process, or pop your hand up if you just want to ask. While people have a think about that, I'll jump in. So do we see this across public transport projects, congestion easing projects and the like, or are there just specific programs that this happens under?
Yes, definitely public transport projects. It's very applicable to congestion easing. We do have a project going on at the moment about congestion charging, which I'm interested to see if that will come in. Really, it will depend on whether there's any specific changes to the lanes or to any elements of the actual traffic. So that will be an interesting one to keep our eye on. But generally, it can apply to all types of projects and programs where there's changes in the way the system operates.
Okay. From a local government perspective, I mean, if you are in any local government in New Zealand there, I mean, are you required? So you mentioned that if it's being funded under some of the NZTA programs, that there's a requirement for either undertaking the safe system audit or doing an exemption. But if it's a council funded investment on the local road network, what are their requirements there, or is it up to them?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's probably two parts. So there'll be council funded projects that get the FAR NLTF funding. So then it is, because it's under NLTF. But if it's 100% council funded projects, so there are those projects that don't get any funding from the NZTA, then it is technically up to the council. Yes, but it's recommended.
Yeah. One thing I do always suggest for local governments is, if there is a bit of uncertainty around that they have a brief policy position that they could have somewhere which gives some consistency in the decision to do or not do safe system audits associated with their works. And it doesn't need to be anything extensive. It's really that you just don't want to have ad hoc application of this process where, they're building a new footy stadium and all the access in and out and the pedestrian facilities and the like gets a safe system audit, but then they build a new theatre down the road and it's got also different access arrangements for pedestrian, but that doesn't get the safe system audit. And you're saying, well, why? What was the decision making around that? And it should be clear, and it can be a risk-based decision making associated with total investment, capital works, or some sort of assessment of the environment that it's in or the like. But it is a really good process to go through to give that assurance of safety has been taken on as a big key consideration in all projects where there's that interaction. Ben's asked an interesting generic question. You want to have a go at that first, Sam?
How long left do we have, Ken? Yes. Safe system. So okay, I'll give the 5-minute answer. Broadly, you look at all the pillars. I mean, we generally took 4, but there's 5 pillars, isn't there? Safe speeds, obviously being the big one and most cost-effective measure. The government's just about to bring in the new speed limits rule, or the act. So hopefully you'll see the ACRS has actually done a little response to that about why that's going to impact on the safe system. Vehicles, yes, there's probably going to be less relatively new 5-star vehicles coming in because of the subsidies have gone down for electric cars, and there were relatively new cars coming in. So and the economy is just getting worse. So the cars get a bit worse and longer. Safe roads and roadsides, obviously the funding's gone down for our good projects that we want to do, although the safety will go up for the RONs and the ROAs for those major highways, but it does mean at the detriment of the smaller local regional roads where a lot of our deaths and serious injuries are on. What else have I got? Road users. Well, this one hopefully should improve where they're doing more enforcement and more fines and things for alcohol and speed limits, we hope. And post-crash care, they don't actually talk a lot about post-crash care, which is interesting, which is one that we want to focus on as well, as making sure that people can get into hospital, although they call it the golden hour, which some people tend to agree with or disagree with. If you can get people to the hospital really, really quickly, you've got a much higher chance of them surviving. So post-crash care is also one they've got to keep a focus on. So short answer is yes. It will definitely impact on achieving the safe system.
Yeah. And Penny's made a good point in there around some of the challenges for cyclists and pedestrians under some of the new regimes, which are certainly disappointing there. I suppose one thing from my perspective in chatting to lots of New Zealanders and having a look at policy statements and the like is a few things. One is that governments change, the pendulum swings, and many of you have been around for long enough to know that these things are going to happen, and we need to adapt as an industry. And this is politics. This is what happens. We need to be a bit forward-thinking and a bit strategic in how we respond to this in order to get the outcomes we want. I mean, the outcomes we want are less New Zealanders killed and seriously injured on the roads and streets. Okay. We had some ways that we were attacking that in the past, which may not be able to be done in the next little bit. Okay. But it doesn't change the physics. It doesn't change the principles of the safe system. How we achieve these might have to adjust a little bit. And we may have some more focus on putting in place a few more things in the interim that reduce the likelihood of crashes more than the severity of crashes. But what I do want everybody to do is look for opportunities to do what we call in the industry step towards treatments. And a step towards treatment is where you are essentially doing something that will reduce the likelihood of crashes. So it's a good road safety treatment. It doesn't get us to that safe system sort of primary end goal that we want, but it actually will facilitate that happening. Let me give you some examples. So a wide centerline, for example, on a higher speed rural road is what we call a step towards treatment. If you're ensuring that at some point in the future, you can go through and put a central barrier system down there. Okay, so that's one. Now, probably the central barrier system under the new government's regime wouldn't be an issue. I mean, there's probably some bits and pieces. But if we go and look at like raised pedestrian crossings, for example, which is an area of passion of mine, I really there's so many benefits to a raised pedestrian crossing. I can't I'd spend the next 2 hours just listing benefits of that across road safety, active transport, equity. The list goes on. But they are going to be a bit of a challenge in some scenarios going forward. But to build a raised pedestrian crossing requires civil works associated with drainage some of the times. It requires lighting work. It requires sometimes curb build outs. And all of those things can sort of be done without having that actual raised feature. But when you are able to then add raised features, it's a very cheap, quick exercise to add that and reline mark and sign it. So you will get safety benefits from the curb build outs, possibly refuge islands and these sorts of things. When you're doing your curb build out, you're doing your drainage changes, those sorts of opportunities under your current constraints can have some they'll have some safety improvements, right? They're not quite getting us to that full safe system objective we want, but they're going to make it a lot easier to get in there. And Penny supporting the letter. Yes, I certainly have. It is. As Sam mentioned, the College of Road Safety did. We quite a number of us put in some comments and that went through as a sort of united voice, and some of the representatives met with the minister to try to push that and the speed, the speed limit management forward a bit.
Yeah, the speed limit one's right now this week. So if you'll get on LinkedIn and click and share, that would be quite good as well.
Excellent. Now, any other questions coming in for Sam around the process of safe system audits in New Zealand? I mean, certainly the completion of this course, getting a certificate of successful completion from this course is a great way to sort of prove you have that base level understanding of the safe system and the process. If you're very new to your career, you may consider just labeling yourself a trainee for a little bit, just as you gain a bit more experience. But certainly a safe system auditor for those with a little bit of experience. And there's many people on this that have quite a number of years experience, and that's great. And you really just want to do 5 of those safe system audits. If you haven't sort of got some under your belt already, just to make sure you've gone through the process with some others that have done quite a few of them, and then off you go and you can start referring to yourself as the team leader of these assessments.
Barath had a question about independence, which I'm just going to copy out the part from the guide for him. So he asked, can the team leader, so that means of the safety audit, and the safety engineer, which I'm assuming he means the client safety engineer, work in the same team if they have a small team like Timaru District Council? So it's a tricky one. So ultimately, you as Timaru District Council have the responsibility for accepting the independence. So, but we wouldn't recommend it because it's good to have that independent voice looking at the safety audit. But if it's a Wakatahi project, they do have a specific requirement on independence as well. So it's our recommendation that you'd get someone else independent to do the safety audit. And there are people around Timaru that can do that for you.
Yeah, that's right. So that's the ideal situation. I encourage local governments often to link up with their surrounding local governments, get a little sort of network of local government safe system auditors so that they can sort of audit each other's. That's a nice way of getting independence and not having to get consultants involved if you don't want to. But as Sam says, you can. There's quite a few people across New Zealand that have the skills and capability to assist with those. Couple more things that came in. Ben wanted a little bit of elaboration on your work with motorcycles and suicide crash risk prevention. So I'll only give you a few minutes to elaborate on that, and then I'm going to have a chat about Henry's question or point that's come in.
Okay. A few minutes. Suicide, I'll try and do quickly. So suicide's a really interesting one because it's almost like very, very hidden in the transport network. So about 2 times as many people die from suicide in New Zealand as on the road transport network. That's general. But then if we look at specifically at the transport network in Auckland, we almost have more people dying from suicide on the motorways than we do in road crashes. And the rail network is the same. So it's definitely an area that overseas they've looked at having a vision zero for suicide in our transport corridors as well. So, and it's generally the treatments range from preventing access, which is basically screens, which are almost 90% effective because they won't move to the next bridge because there's a monetary thing. Third-party intervention, which is about having cameras and things and trying to get a policeman out there to stop them from jumping. Help seeking, which is about signs and them choosing not to go, and postvention, which is after the fact, really. And it's something that requires like an all-of-system approach a lot as well, which is very similar to Safe System. So we work with the Suicide Prevention Office, local DHBs, NZTA, and the rail teams up here to try and address this as a system. So it's a very interesting and increasingly new issue. And I apologize because suicide is actually something that's harsh to deal with. So someone on the call was maybe triggered or anything, you can actually give me a call after this. We can talk through. And motorcycles as well is something that's a tough one to deal with when you're talking about 2050 Vision Zero. It's motorcycle safety is, if you look at the survivability things, they're about 30 Ks, whereas they're operating in a 100 K environment all the time. And it's just something that's incredibly tough, which I find very interesting. It's incredibly tough to solve. So we're working with the agency and Ken and working over in Australia to try and have a look at that, what that 2050 vision would be and all those treatments that we can come up with, and what are the good things that we should keep doing that are very much evidence-based, what are the things that we kind of need more research on, and what are the things that just really aren't going to get us to where we need to go.
Yeah, thanks,
5
Sam.
minutes. Yeah.
No, it's a really interesting points there. And yeah, I mean, the suicide one is a hugely challenging thing. And it is interesting to see some of the Scandinavian countries especially sort of integrating that in and saying this is part of the road trauma problem and we're not going to ignore it and we're going to see what we can do. And I think that's a sort of wonderful way to think about it from a societal perspective. It's amazing to understand that the design, management, and operation of a road network can have influence on those tragic events, and so we can start to say, well, what can we do? So it's great that you're doing that. And the motorcycle one, exactly as you say, so challenging, so so many things to look at, and it's good to be involved in that current work. And Sam's also just recently been appointed on the Austrades expert panel for motorcycle safety for road design, which is which is an exciting prospect to see Austroads acknowledging that there's a lot more that can be done in road design to improve motorcycle safety. Okay, Henry's popped in a really interesting one. This is around another tragic event of a head-on collision in New Zealand. No median barrier, high-speed road, but outer barrier systems, and that possibility that they contributed to the head-on occurring. There was sort of no space to avoid the head-on crash. So I think the safe system audit process and looking at a road like that helps through this in the sense that you discreetly look at each of these crash types in their own right and try and understand what the infrastructure is influencing in terms of those crash types. So certainly it sounds like from that one there would be you know, a median barrier would have been a wonderful thing to have lessened that. There are challenges associated with the implementation of median barrier sometimes, and yeah, outer barrier systems certainly reduce those run-off road crashes to the left or the right, so they can bring up some benefit. But it's actually a bigger sort of question around how we manage the road network and how we put in place infrastructure treatments that reduce risk. So a lot of treatments that we put out there will reduce risk by a certain amount and slightly increase risk in other areas. Now, you can take a very sort of theoretical approach to that, which would be to say, well, at the sum of the risk is lower, then we should do it. So if we implement something that will save 10 lives, but create new risks that will cause 8 deaths, we should do it because we save 2 people. I think that that's a very theoretical way to think about it. And the practical realities are that we really need to focus on all of those risks that we possibly create and see what we can do around it. The outer barrier system one, you know, if you've just got the choice of, like they've said, absolutely no median barrier is going in, do you put the outer barriers in, even though you've got this slight increase in possibility of a head-on crash because of that avoiding? I would still be putting the outer barrier system in because we know we're going to save a lot of lives from the lane departure crashes. Is it the ideal situation? Absolutely not. However, it's better than not having that in there. Yeah, and there is the temptation to look at sort of specific cases and see this, and the media will often love to do this. Really, we need to look holistically and evaluate these on a larger scale to get meaningful understanding of how those risks play out. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Sam. And it's been a good discussion. I'm actually have to move on pretty quick here now. There's some other things popping in. I just want to remind everybody that there's 3 sort of documents that you can be looking at throughout this. Really, the key one there being the Waka Kotahi Safe System Audit Guide. Make sure you have a read of that. If you've got, it's got lots of good information in it. You have the Part 6, Australia's Guide to Road Safety, Part 6, Road Safety Audit, which has also got good information, and the Safe System Assessment Framework. The last little bit before I jump into the Learning Management System, show you how to finish off the course, is to say, well, you're going to go out and apply the Safe System Audit process in one specific road environment to prove to us you understand the process. And you'll be having a think about that road environment. But there's, you know, your certificate doesn't say you're a safe system auditor only for local roads or only for arterial intersections or whatever you're going to be looking at. It's a generic thing. And so we can just look at lots of these different street environments, really understand how we're going to try and transform these into higher alignment with safe system principles. And for our residential streets, we're really looking at reducing access, so blocking off these as through routes to reduce exposure, lessening the severity of injury through traffic calming, getting speeds down, ensuring that pedestrians and cyclists through these areas, if an incident happens, that it's well within survivable thresholds. 30, 20 kilometre an hour being sort of those threshold speeds. We want it lower than that. These are not through routes. They should not be facilitated as through routes, rat runs. And then you can think about some of the likelihood alterations that you can do with different signage and line marking. In places for people, we really have to acknowledge that the vulnerable road users, pedestrians and cyclists are the road user here, and vehicles are the guest. And if they're there, they really should be slowed down. And so we need to start transforming these out of essentially roads where there happen to be pedestrians to pedestrian areas where there might be a vehicle, and that is the odd one out. So speeds for any vehicles through these areas very, very slow, which improves the severity of anything that happens and lessens the likelihood of anything happening. To block off and create dedicated pedestrian crossing points in these sorts of environments often increases risk. It certainly erodes the placed value of an area. So, you're only doing those if you've got these sort of major traffic functions through the area as well. Down here, in these sort of mixed use arterials, I'll call it, and I'll give a prize for anybody who can tell me where that is. At the mixed use environments, we're really starting to try to ensure we've got these mid-ups on there in Hamilton, just before Penny there. Yeah, down in Hamilton, just on the approach into the CBD there. We really want to keep vehicle speeds down. I mean, I think this is a great example of opportunities for raised intersections, because we're going to reduce vehicle speeds at the intersections. It's going to act as some traffic calming in the sense that vehicles won't be able to get that fast straight run through if they wanted to at 2 in the morning or whenever they can. It's going to act a little bit like a bit of traffic calming, segregating out modes, so providing dedicated cycleways and the like through these areas. So all of those things reducing likelihood of crashes, also severity of crashes as well. Our low volume rural roads, particularly challenging. In the end, we're going to have to do a lot of speed limit reductions. There might be challenges in the interim with that. Lots of things to do to lessen the likelihood of crashes, such as line marking, signage, and the like. And then as we get in the higher volume roads, we're going full containment barrier systems. Central barrier system really beneficial for both head-on crashes and run-off road crashes as well. And I might jump through there because I just need to I just need time to actually just show you a couple of things, how to finish the course off. So in the learning management system, you're going to finish off your assignment, you're going to upload it and everything like that. Then you're going to have to provide some feedback. And once you've provided feedback, your certificate will release. So once you've everything's been marked, you provided feedback, and your certificate will release there. There is some little badges here if you'd like to share your new credentials online. Feel free to use one of those badges, and you can share that. And there is one quiz for today, just to make sure you finish that off. So once you've finished all your quizzes, you've uploaded your assignment, it's been marked, you just go to this feedback and certificates and finish everything off. Okay, so we've covered a lot there today. I want to thank Sam for taking time to jump in there and have a discussion around the New Zealand specifics. I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your extremely busy schedules to learn the process of safe system auditing. It is really something that we do have some good evidence around this process being beneficial in reducing death and serious injury. In terms of the road safety audit and the safe system assessments, they've very much been evaluated around the world to show wonderful benefits. The combined two, we don't know the success of that, but everything says it should be absolutely really wonderful in injecting safety into our projects. And I think that's really important. You're all obviously passionate road safety practitioners. The fact that you signed up for this, that you've come along to it, utilize this tool as something to push safety in areas that may not be having safety front of mind. We know there's a lot of different transport objectives out there. To me, I always say, what's the point in doing it if we can't ensure the safety of our community when they're using these new facilities or these changed outcomes? There's certainly a lot of stuff that we can do to make sure that we have got the best safety outcome we possibly can, and that it is protecting all road users, our pedestrians, our cyclists, motorcyclists, vehicle drivers as well, and anybody in different modes, and anybody that has special needs in their ability to get around the road network. So thank you for coming along. Please keep in contact with myself or Sam if you've got any questions. If there's weird things that come up that you're trying to look at, shoot us an email. We maybe have done something in the past that we can share with you, or point you at somebody else who works in that area, has specialist knowledge. It is really, we're just trying to achieve as best we can in terms of reduction in death and serious injury. If you have any challenges with your assignment, please get in contact and get some of that coaching. Otherwise, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.